guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about Aphrodite. So Aphrodite is the goddess of love, beauty and sex, and she was married to Theseus, who was the god of the forge. She had many love affairs, including Ares and including Hermes. They were both gods, they were both part of the 12 Olympians, and there's two different ways as to how she was born, and there is a really funny story involving her, Ares, and her Theseus that I can't wait to talk to you about. She was involved majorly in the Trojan War, although she didn't actually cause the war. That was actually by Eris, who was the goddess of discord, and who was best friends with Ares. She did really create the problem, which was Helen of Sparta. So first up, let's find out a little bit about Aphrodite's backstory, where she came from, how she was born, who her parents were, and her Roman name. So her Roman name is Venus, and as we know with the Romans, they tend to look at the stars and the constellations and astrology a lot more than the Greeks did. Take the planets and the stars and find their names from there. So Ares would be Mars, you've got Zeus who was Jupiter, you've got Hermes who was Mercury, you've got Cronus who was Saturn, you've got Gaia who was Earth, you've got Artemis who's the moon, you've got Apollo who's the sun, and of course you've got Aphrodite who was Venus. And that ties in really nicely because Ares and Aphrodite had a love affair and they loved each other, and it ties in nicely with Venus and Mars. Women come from Venus, men come from Mars, Aphrodite and Ares, Venus and Mars. So it all works out really nicely. Okay, so who is Aphrodite? So not only she's the goddess of love that you would worship for love, she's also the goddess of beauty. And that came with a lot of problems when it comes to those who would say that she wasn't as beautiful as, say, their person that they were with, or that she wasn't the most beautiful goddess. And that would cause a lot of problems and a lot of rifts between not just her and mortals, but her and the gods as well, which leads us to the Trojan War. So how she was created. So there's two stories. So the first story is that she was the daughter of Zeus and Dione, who was a Titan. And Dione, there's not much known about her other than the fact that she was supposed to have been Zeus's first wife or person that he was supposed to be with if he didn't marry Hera and have many children with Hera. So we don't really know much about her other than the fact that she was a Titan, which means that she was older than Zeus in the sense of where we have. So if you go back to my video that talks about Greek mythology, you'll see that we had the Titans way before we had the Olympians, and Zeus was king of the gods, who was king of the Olympians. So Dione would have been above him. The story that we have, which is a little bit more exciting, a little bit more grim. So as we know from previous videos with Poseidon and Athena, we know that because of what happened to Medusa with Poseidon, she then created Pegasus. So as we know with a lot of gods and goddesses, a lot of creations have been caused by things that have happened to them, or things that have just happened in general that involve the gods and the Titans, and then that has created a monster or a creature or even a goddess in this case. So back if we go to where the Titans were in the video Cronus, which you might want to have a look at here, Cronus was very upset about what his father Uranus had done to his mother. So what he decided to do was castrate him, and his genitals fell into the sea, creating some sea foam, and from that sea foam created Aphrodite. And what happened is she came out of the sea onto the land where there was nymphs who offered her stuff to hide her body parts, because she was literally naked from the sea, and she came out in this clown, which is the photo I'm going to show you now, which is a very famous picture of Venus. And as you can have a look here, you can see that she comes out of the sea and she's got the nymphs and she's got people around her, and she's supposed to be very beautiful. She's got the beautiful golden auburny gingery hair flowing down her body. She comes out of the shell, which is associated to her, and she's very much like not a water goddess, but she's very associated with the sea and sea foam, and her name actually comes from sea foam in Greek. So that's quite exciting and interesting to know. So it depends on what story you want to believe. I quite like the sea foam one. I think it's exciting. I think there's a lot more to her that way, but that's mainly because we don't know a lot about Dione. And if that was the case, then again it would be weird when Zeus finds her beautiful. And then when we get to the Trojan War, it will make a little more sense as to why he didn't want to pick her in the story. But I don't know. I like to believe that the gods didn't have as many children that they liked as they did. So yeah, and because we don't know a lot about Dione, it keeps it a bit of a mystery, but it's not a story. Whereas when you see the sea foam story, you tend to understand a little bit more about her. So I think I'm going to go with that one. There's a poem in this book about her and about what she kind of looks like. She's often portrayed as this nice person with love and beauty, like in Hercules, a TV series, but sometimes she could be seen as a bit evil, where she would like curse you if you said she wasn't beautiful, if you said like she looked better in this portrait than this one, she would get angry, or like, my wife is more beautiful than you, or this goddess is more beautiful than you, she would then be angry. Whereas some other stories she would be seen as nice and lovely and beautiful and kind and sweet and wanting to help everyone be happy, basically, and in love. So this is a poem. The breath of the west wind bore her over the sounding sea, up from the delicate foam to wave-rigged cypress at her isle. And the hours, golden wreathed, welcome her joyously. They clad her in a raiment immortal and brought her to the gods. Wonder seized them all as they saw the violet-crowned Cynthia. So she is known as a Cynthian goddess because she is from Cyprus, as a beautiful golden goddess. Romans wrote of her in the same way. With her the beauty comes, the winds flee before her, and the storm clouds, the sweet flowers embroidered with earth, the waves of the sea laugh as she moves in the radiant light. Without her there is no joy or no loveliness anywhere. This is a picture that the poets best like to paint her, and like the previous photo that we spoke about when she came out of the sea foam, you can see why they would describe her in that way and where that portrait would have come from, similar to this poem and the words of it. So she does sound like this beautiful, beautiful goddess, which is why it's funny when you see that she was married to Theseus, who was seen as the most ugliest of gods, and you know, he had a bad leg and he was thrown over Mount Olympus when he was a baby, and Hera did not like her own child, and he only married Aphrodite because he won her in a prize, because he freed his mum even though he captured his mum. But that's, her Theseus story. But yeah, you do need to kind of know what he was like to see why she didn't like him or why she wasn't in love with him. So yeah, the most beautiful goddess marries the most ugliest goddess. It's quite funny when you think of it like that. So Aphrodite had many lovers other than her Theseus, and we spoke about that, and we spoke about how that she didn't love him, and she wasn't happy because she was a prize in a way. So I suppose that also played a part of it. She didn't actually pick him because she liked him or she lusted over him, whereas all the other suitors that she had, although there was only one Ares that she truly did love, all of the other suitors that she had were far more beautiful than her Theseus. The story of Aphrodite and Adonis. So he's the first one that we're going to be talking about. So he's one of the most famous of her lovers other than Ares. And although this is more about Adonis as a concept than a character, the name Adonis has been known to be symbolised as beautiful, handsome man. Adonis caught the eye of Aphrodite the moment he was born. Aphrodite spotted the baby, and she knew that when he grew up to be a man, she wanted him to herself. So what she did was she took him to see Persephone, who was in the underworld, who was married to Hades, and she took him down there and she said that, can you look after him until he is fully grown? However, Persephone started to develop an attraction towards him as well. Obviously he got older, thankfully, but she started to develop attraction for him as well. So Zeus had to get involved into it because Persephone and Aphrodite were both like, oh my god, he's mine, he's mine, he's mine. So Zeus created a plan, and like Persephone had to spend half the time in the underworld and half the time in the world with her mother. He turned around and he said to him, you're going to spend half of your time with Aphrodite and half of your time with Persephone. However, you get a little bit of time to yourself. However, the time that he spent on his own, he actually spent with Aphrodite. So if you imagine it's like 3 months with himself, 3 months with Persephone, and 3 months with Aphrodite, he decided to do 6 months with Aphrodite and 3 months with Persephone. So we understood who he liked more. So he would go out hunting, he would go out fishing, he would go out doing all these different things with her, and they're things that she would not have done herself. I mean, why would she want to do things that aren't her hobbies? But she would do them with him because she loved him too. However, one day he got killed by a wild boar, and his blood went all over the floor and created the beautiful red flowers. But she was so upset, she kissed him, and she was very sad, and that was her love affair ended. The next one we're going to talk about is Hermes, and Hermes is the god of messages, and he's also known as Mercury, and he is son of Zeus. So they had a love affair, and they both had a child, and their child's name was Hermaphroditus. And basically it's a combination between the two of the parents, Aphrodite and Hermes. And if you have a look here, you can kind of see where they've got that from. So the story of their child was he met a nymph called Salamacus, and they were merged into one, which created the first ever intersex person, and that is from Greek mythology. So that's where the name comes from. And the third one that she had, other than obviously her Theseus, which we spoke about, was a Greek Trojan. So his name was His name was Anchises. So he was a Trojan and he was a mortal, and Aphrodite was saying about how, oh, I've not had a child with a mortal before, blah blah blah. So Zeus got involved like he does, because he's always there when no one wants him, and he made her lustfully fall in love with him, Anchises, not Zeus, and together they had a mortal child who later became on to be a Trojan prince. And finally we have Ares. So Ares was basically, I would say, Aphrodite's love of her life. Like the Mars, like the Venus kind of thing, they were supposed to be together. However, she married Theseus instead. And just a little bit about that story, all the gods had to go off and bring back Theseus back to Mount Olympus once he imprisoned Hera, which we'll get to that story when we do the Theseus video. But basically he went off to go and get him, but Theseus was able to stop him, and therefore Ares lost, which meant that he didn't win Athena, which means he didn't win Aphrodite in the prize. He actually lost to Theseus, and then Theseus had to marry Aphrodite. So Ares and Aphrodite have been having a love affair since the very, very beginning, since they both set eyes on each other, I would imagine. And together they had many children, including Eros, who was the god of, well, Cupid, basically. He would go around shooting his arrows and helping his mother put people in love, although that would probably be seen as a little bit mean and a bit mischievous when he would shoot arrows at people and create love triangles. So he wasn't always just like, hey, you two love each other, let's make it happen. It was, oh, you three love each other, let's make a big love triangle. So yeah, so he would kind of do things like that. But the big story that we have with them, them three, so you've got Aphrodite, Ares and Theseus in this story. So Theseus had started to have a theory that Aphrodite and Ares were off gallivanting around and in love. And one day they were in their home, in their bed, while Theseus was back in the forge, slaving away, making those thunderbolts for Zeus. And one day Hellas, who is the god of the sun, who would take his chariot around and take the sun from day to night, he actually saw what was going on and went off and told Theseus, and Theseus went absolutely mad. So he thought it was about time that he revealed to everyone, all the Olympians and all the gods and monsters, that them two were basically doing what they were doing. So he turned around and created a trap, and he set the trap in their bed so that the next time that they two went there, they would then be caught and ensnared in this trap. And that's exactly what happened. So he created these invisible, really strong, powerful chains that locked them both into place, into however they were. And instead of just going there and confronting them and be like, hey, this is what's happened, ha ha ha, I found you, he actually calls up all the Olympians, all the gods and everyone to come and watch, like a great big party, to see them two looking absolutely stupid. And they got so embarrassed that when he finally freed them, because Poseidon got involved and said, hey, you should free them, they ran off and weren't seen again for a very long time, because they were absolutely embarrassed. And I found a photo online which kind of shows you a little bit of what people saw back then and what they thought it looked like. So yeah, that's basically Aphrodite. She's caused a lot of problems with Theseus and Ares, and she had many love affairs, but the final big story that she's involved in is the Trojan War. I will definitely do a video that talks a lot more about the Trojan War, how it started, how the gods were involved in the middle and the end, but that's for another day. So just a quick snippet of how Aphrodite was involved in the war. So the gods were having a massive banquet, everyone was all excited, living it up, enjoying their drinks, their brews and their honey and Mount Olympus. It was all fun. However, they didn't invite Eris. Eris was the goddess of discord, and she literally liked to get involved in things. It was chaos, like that was literally what she was, discord and chaos. And she was best friends with Ares, and together they loved riding into battle, like the Trojan War, and enjoyed the bloodshed. So she turns up at the party, a little bit like Maleficent, and was like, ha 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 ha, why have you not invited me? Now I'm going to cause some problems. So she goes over to Zeus in front of Hera, who's his wife, the queen of the gods, Athena, who is his favourite daughter, who came from his head, as you can see from the video that I've got, the Athena video, and Aphrodite, who is the most beautiful goddess ever. So she turns around and she goes, hey Zeus, who do you think is the most beautiful out of these three? All heads turn. Zeus is on the spot. Is he going to pick his wife? Is he going to pick his daughter? Or is he going to pick Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love and beauty? So what does Zeus do? Instead of picking his wife, he turns around and says, hey, Hermes, help me out here, mate. So they go and get someone called Paris, and they bring him to the party. Now Paris is part of the Trojan War, and he is literally the reason why they went into war, because he stole his wife Helen. But did he steal his wife Helen, or was he given Helen by one of the goddesses? Let's find out. So Hera turns around and says to him, if you pick me, Paris, I'll give you power. Athena says, if you pick me, I'll give you courage and strength, and I'll also give you the brains of battle. So she'll give him lots of battle tips, how to survive war, all of the things that come with battle, and being wise and clever. Aphrodite says, I'll give you love. I'll give you the most beautiful mortal ever. So he turns around and he has a little think about it. And he turns around to Aphrodite and says, you're the most beautiful goddess. So that literally makes Hera against him. That also makes Athena against him in the Battle of Troy. So Aphrodite says, here you go. Her name is Helen. She lives in Sparta. He goes, okay. He then goes off and travels and finds Helen. And she's actually married to the king of Sparta called Menelaus, who is from Sparta. And that is how the war starts, because he takes Helen back with him to Troy. And that is how the really, really long Battle of Troy starts. And it's all to do with Aphrodite basically giving him Helen of Troy, even though Eris technically started it. It was caused by, I would say, Eris, Zeus and Aphrodite. So yeah, that is literally Aphrodite. Let me know in the comment section below if there's anything you didn't know about it. Are you a team Theseus? Are you a team Ares? Both of them have their good things and both of them have their bad things, but who do you prefer? I like to think that she should have been with Ares. I also think her thesis is a little bit misunderstood, but I still think that she should be with Ares. There's just something about them two that's supposed to be together. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you soon. Bye.